Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this event. I'm Delphine Adenau-Ousu, the Executive Director of the EU Chamber of Commerce in Canada, and I will be your moderator this morning for this event. I am really thrilled to be with you today for two main reasons. The first one is that we will give you a lot of information around CETA and how to use it to actually access the Canadian markets, but also because today and this morning when I woke up, we had the result of the Canadian election. Obviously, I will not comment on the results, but it's always good to have the results so we can actually move forward with the team in place. So before I give the floor to the introduction to Rupert Schlegel-Milch, I'm sorry for the misspelling of the name. I just wanted to give some few tips to the audience today. So our event is divided in three parts. The first one is obviously the introduction, in which you will have information around CETA. We will then have a roundtable, which you will understand how SMEs can actually use CETA to access the Canadian market. And we will have the example of two companies who use CETA to enter the Canadian market. We have one from France and one from Ireland. This session is really meant to be interactive. So if you have any question, because we are in a webinar mode and online, feel free to raise your hand virtually. It's at the bottom of your screen. You can raise your hand and we will give you the opportunity to unmute and ask your question or give your comments. So please really feel free to interact. You can also ask all your questions in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen also. The last part of this event this morning or this afternoon for you will be a workshop, and it will give you information on how to use how all the tools that are available to you to actually use CETA and access the Canadian markets. There will be no question and answer session for this particular workshop. Nevertheless, feel free to still ask your question in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. We will either try to answer it live or we'll take your question and we will get back to you. So without further ado, let's start our event. And I will now give the floor to Rupert Schlegel-Milch, Acting Deputy Director General in DG Trade at the European Commission and Director for the Americas, Agriculture and Food Safety. Over to you, Rupert.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Merci, Delphine, and welcome to everyone. Good afternoon to folks in Europe and good morning to those who are listening from Canada. So let me first say I'm obviously very pleased to be here at the day where we celebrate 4 years of CETA. And I'll start with talking about Monsieur Trudeau, as you did, and more directly, but I'm talking now about Pierre Trudeau, who once made a very nice quote saying that Canada was very good at exporting basically cold fronts and hockey players and importing acid rain and baseball players. So those were the days when Canada was basically trading with the US and nobody else. And with CETA, I think many things have changed, in particular the one that Canadian trade has diversified quite a lot. And the testimony is in CETA. We trade 25% more than at the start when CETA started 4 years ago. And I think those are benefits which are quite substantial. And before getting further into all the good things CETA can do, in particular for small and medium enterprises, let me contextualize a little bit the present context. Obviously, after or in the crisis that we're still in the pandemic, one of the most, I think, severe shocks we've had. Trade policy is an important part of the recovery. And like in 2008-9, the financial crisis, exports are usually the first engine of coming back to whatever the new normal will be. And it's the same, I think, here in this crisis. And we need to do what we can. And the multilateral trading system, our free trade agreements, and in particular our partnership with Canada are part of that revival. And we share so many values with Canada beyond the purely economic, democratic societies, tolerant and open societies, and a global governance system which protects citizens and works for companies. I think that is extremely important. And beyond issues like SME support, we're also talking with our Canadian friends under CETA on issues like consumer protection and other things that we think are important, gender, for example. But now coming back to CETA, because this is what you want to, mainly focus on today. It's obviously the central pillar of our economic relationship. In our tweets today, we highlight the fact that 98% of the tariffs has gone and even more will go. We're saving for European businesses 600 or something more million euros a day alone in tariffs, which don't have to be paid. And the trade, as we have said before, it's going up. We are doing much better in the Canadian-EU trade than in the trade with the world. Our exports to Canada have grown much faster than exports to the rest of the world. And that is true in particular, I think, also for services, which is an important part where smaller companies are also playing a major and bigger role. We have a positive trade balance with Canada also in services, even though we have to admit the crisis has hit that, because there's also tourism, of course, in those figures. It's also a service, have been hit quite a lot. But we want to get on with it and come back to a very successful trading relationship. And this is, of course, much more than the tariffs I just mentioned. It is also the work we do towards a green transition. It's the work we're doing, as I mentioned, on looking what trade can do for gender equality. And last but not least, this is the theme that we're mostly focusing on today. What can we do via a modern trade agreement to improve the participation of small businesses? In the framework of CETA, I think that is one thing that we have dedicated a lot of time on already. And I don't have to repeat in this context how important that is. 99% of EU companies are SMEs and 87% of exports. And that's a very high number if you think what the public perception often is, that only big companies can export. 87% of the EU exports come from small and medium enterprises. Now in CETA, we don't have what we have in the latest version of our free trade agreements, which is a dedicated chapters on SME policy. But we did rectify that shortly after CETA came into place by adopting a comprehensive recommendation in the CETA bodies, in the CETA Joint Committee, on what we could do on SME policy. And there, I mean, this recommendation, which will also be, I think, mentioned a couple of times today, I mean, we firstly make a commitment to make available all possible information to the SME community, because very often the first thing you find when you talk to smaller companies is they don't have big analytic departments or regulatory departments which can look at these issues. So you have to have user-friendly, easy to understand information. We also came up with the point to make an SME contact point available for on both sides, which are basically there to apply a focus on SME or an SME lens to the work of how we implement this agreement. Speakers later today will talk about all of these issues and give you more detail how we're trying to ensure that smaller companies can actually benefit from markets they don't know as well as the home market. The only thing I want to mention is the Access to Markets database, which is really a cutting-edge tool to help smaller companies to find the information, the relevant information, which, of course, you know, is not just the tariffs, it's the whole question of rules of origin and other regulatory technical barriers or technical norms that you have to be aware of, and so on. So that will be part of the discussion later. And I've already mentioned that the CETA contact points are also have been working in the last couple of years to have more dedicated work plans to make sure that we don't miss any aspect of SME work that we might want to focus on. And this is also things like a methodology on the use of CETA preferences, because very often smaller companies don't even know these tariff preferences are available. They're not used, as we say, which is, of course, not, if you wish, the optimal result once you have taken the effort to lower the tariffs. So now, last point, all of this is all very nice when I talk about it, but what I really want is that you talk about it, because this work cannot be done without input from small and medium enterprises. And one of the objectives of today's meeting is to get better and more input. And I'm extremely happy, and I want to thank the 2 European companies who are here today to actually have had the experience of expanding business in Canada and are willing to share their experiences, because this, I think, is by far more convincing than anything else. And I would also point you to our websites, where we have put a couple of testimonials of companies where a company, owners of small, medium enterprises actually tell you about what they have done and how they have done it. So to come back to Prime Minister Trudeau, the older, it's not only about hockey players and cold fronts, it's about vibrant markets, a market which shares our values, and that we as Europeans have a preferential and very easy, if you wish, access to. So I hope that today's discussions will inspire you to further develop those markets and to use the free trade agreements, which after all, the European Union and its member states and the executives have negotiated for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rupert. And indeed, I think it's important to recall always our common values and how we share a lot, the EU and Canada, mostly in that global landscape that has been really shifting in the last year and a half. Thank you very much for your introduction words. Indeed, just as you mentioned, I mean, CETA is a great agreement, obviously, for trade for SMEs. But there's also many other aspects of CETA in terms of government procurement, labor mobility, sustainability. But I guess we will talk about all this later in this event this morning again, but this afternoon for you. So again, thank you very much for your introduction, Rupert. Now we will enter in the second phase of our event, so we can keep on track of time. So we'll have the roundtable. So I will briefly introduce the speakers of the roundtable so they can actually put their video on and unmute. So first we have Peter Sandler. He's the Director for Enforcement, Market Access, SMEs, Legal Affairs, Technology and Security in the Digitrade at the European Commission. He will give us some introduction words. And then on the panel, we have Dominique Bousquin, International Trade and Foreign Policy Department at Eurochambre and Policy Advisor for the Global Chamber Platform. Good afternoon, Dominique. We have Luc Hendricks, Director of Enterprise Policy and External Relations at SME United, the European Employers Organization, representing the interests of craft and SMEs at EU level. Good afternoon, Luc. And then we have the two companies joining us this afternoon. Pierrick Leluherne, Head of Technilum, Canadian subsidiary, and Leonora O'Brien. She's the founder and CEO of Pharmapod. So that's the two European companies. So now I will leave the floor to Peter to moderate and animate this roundtable. Just a reminder to the attendees, again, feel free to raise your hand virtually. If you have any comments or any question, I will make sure you are unmuted so you can ask your question or use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Over to you, Peter.
Thanks very much, Delphine. And I'm really happy to have this opportunity to moderate the first part of today's event. Before we open up to the panel, let me just set the scene a little bit, and continuing a bit on the theme that Rupert was pointing to, the fact that SMEs are the lifeblood of our economy, that they're helping to drive the recovery from the COVID-19 crisis. And just as preliminary remarks, I'll just say a little bit about the new trade policy that the EU set out earlier on this year, and one or two things about the challenges that we see SMEs facing and how we're responding to those. In terms of the new trade policy, which was set out in February, at the heart is the idea that Europe will continue to pursue a model based on open markets, on what we call open strategic autonomy. This means shaping an up-to-date and fit-for-purpose trading system and global set of trade rules, but also developing the network of bilateral trade relations that we have, and that CETA is a prime example of, whilst at the same time being ready to level the playing field and to protect ourselves, stand up for EU interests from unfair practices where they occur. And underlying all of this is a wish to make sure that businesses of all sizes, and particularly SMEs, can get the maximum value from the 39 trade investment agreements that we have that cover something like 69 partners around the world. So as part of the emphasis on new open markets, it goes hand in hand with a new focus on implementation and enforcement. Our agreements are only as good as the opportunities that they actually deliver, and we have to be sure that others are ready to play by the rules that they've signed up to, whether in the World Trade Organization or through our bilateral agreements. Last year saw the creation of a new role inside the Trade Department, and this is of a Chief Trade Enforcement Officer for the Commission. This is a kind of super sheriff, if you like, who can give more visibility and more focus to making sure our agreements are having a real effect. But they can only have that effect if they are having, if people are aware of the opportunities that are out there, and that they know that they have the tools and the resources that are needed to make the best use of our trade agreements. And this is particularly where organizations like Eurocommerce, SME United, but also, and we'll hear from them in the second part of today's event, the Enterprise Europe Network, trade promotion organizations, chambers of commerce, and organizations like your own, Delphine, have a real role to play. In terms of the challenges for SMEs and how we're responding, the reality, of course, is that for smaller size firms, it's harder work to get into international markets. You've got less resource and less time to spend on checking the rules, on ensuring compliance. There are hurdles of standardization, the sort of things that large companies can address more easily because they have bigger legal or economic teams or regulatory teams to manage these things. And these are some of the issues which have been highlighted by Eurochambre and SME United in position papers they've prepared more recently. A survey that we did ahead of this event also shows that there is still a big awareness gap that we need to close, and indeed events like this are designed to try and help that. In the survey, we saw that over half of the people replying were not aware of the changes of rules to help small businesses that came from the CETA agreement. More than half didn't know about the access to markets portal that you'll be hearing more about later. People also highlighted that it was really difficult sometimes to tell whether their goods or their services fell under the trade agreement. So these are things that we have to do to build awareness. So let me just mention 5 ways in which we are stepping up our game. The first is the information tools. The platform already mentioned, access to markets. We'll come to see more about that later. It's a free multilingual platform that provides loads of information for businesses, as Rupert mentioned, and we've supported it with training, events and social media campaign. Secondly, within that platform, there's a special tool which can help you decide whether the rules of origin under the CETA agreement or other agreements actually apply, and you can get the full benefit from the agreement. Thirdly, we're really pleased today to be launching a new tool, part of that platform, which is access to procurement. And you'll see that later. It is a way in which European suppliers can check whether or not they're eligible to bid under the CETA agreement for different types of government procurement being offered in Canada. Fourthly, and specifically for CETA, we put a real unprecedented effort into explaining the benefits of the agreement. There's something like 18 different guides for different aspects of the agreement or for particular sectors that can benefit from it. We've got 6 webinars, I think, online at the moment. There's a real effort which we're putting into making our agreements known, and it's served as a model that we've used for Japan, for the Vietnam deal from last year. And then finally, we're actively tackling barriers. where they arise and trying to sort out problems under the agreements where they exist. We've reorganized things inside the Commission to give a stronger focus and a more joined up approach across different parts of the European Commission's departments, whether it's on the area of digital services, whether it's on the area of free movement of goods, whether it's in the area of labour rules. And we've created a single entry point, a one-stop shop for people who want to find out more about our agreements, but also want to raise issues or problems that they've discovered. Ultimately, unlocking the benefits of a trade agreement requires a collective effort. We can't do this on our own. We need member states, we need business associations, and we need you and the people who are actually trying to take the benefits from the trade agreements to let us know how it's working and to know what we can do better. So let's turn to our guests this afternoon. First to Eurochambre and SME United to get their view on how the Commission's efforts are doing. And then we'll hear from two great businesses who have actually made the most of the Canada agreement and can tell us a little bit about the problems that they've encountered. So maybe Dominique and then Luc, I can kind of put an opening question to you. So what is your assessment of how the Commission is managing to promote its trade agreements, the CETA agreement in particular? Is there more that we should be doing? What would be your advice? And I think Dominique from Eurochambre, I think you're going to kick off.
Thanks, Peter, and thanks for this introduction, and really also a word of congratulations for putting the focus so squarely on SMEs for such an important celebration. I think as the 4th anniversary of CETA and the initiatives and tools that you've rolled out to really help SMEs reap the benefits of trade agreements and CETA in particular, with all the guides and information tools that were rolled out, and that's really appreciated. I mean, for us as chambers, I think you know that SMEs must be a key strategic priority across EU trade policies, and we're glad that this has also been a continued focus in the last trade policy review. And that is, of course, first and foremost in our FTAs and CETA in particular, implementing our SME chapters, implementing the recommendation for CETA in particular, but of course focusing on removing barriers and cutting red tape, especially in the regulatory area and the NTB area. But also, I think we should look beyond and globally at the WTO, where there's a promising MSME initiative, and where I think the EU and like-minded partners such as Canada can and should do more to promote this and help this make a success at MC 12 further on, but also through different online tools. ROSA, I think, is a very good example, the self-assessment tool for rules of origin for companies that they can use. We have advocated that for a long time, but also in general, what you mentioned, the access to market website, which is actually very, very useful. And I think it's worth mentioning it here that these tools won the public vote for the EU Ombudsman Award for good administration in June. So congrats to the trade team on that for a job well done. But I think it's, if anything, it's also a reminder that it's worthy to invest in SME-friendly policies and tools. And the last item of priority, and I think you mentioned that, Peter, is awareness raising the implementation of our trade agreements. But maybe, and this ties a bit into what Rupert is saying, I mean, just to put it into context, particularly in this COVID crisis, which in the last year and a half has induced an unprecedented level of shock to our economies, our FTAs have really been a stable and predictable framework. And these are really fundamental traits for the SME community, because due to their size, we cannot afford to do without a stable, practical, and predictable access to foreign markets. And that pays off. And we heard the figures, the trade increases in, thanks to CETA that Rupert had laid out earlier, 13 million jobs in the EU that are created by SMEs alone. And I think we can only, from our end, confirm this positive uptake by our businesses in different sectors, machinery, pharmaceuticals, but also food manufacturers, chocolate, bakery products, but also in procurement where opportunities were seized, and waste management and water is something very relevant, I think, in the context of our Green Deal. But I think in this context, I think I would like to place a focus on also a key element which you should focus on is data. Because if we want to tailor our policies towards SMEs, we must also have SME-specific data from our trade agreement. So I think this is something where we should focus on also going forward in terms of having this much more concretely for CETA, but also for all our other EU trade agreements as well. And as you mentioned, we cannot get complacent by the good news. I think a key focus must be still on implementation in CETA and all our other trade agreements, because as I think it was mentioned, still too often we do not fully use the preferences in our FTAs. I think in CETA we're about 55%, which is a noteworthy improvement, but I think it's still not where we want to be. And often our partners also tend to use the FTAs more than we do. So in times of our recovery, we cannot, I think, afford to waste economic potential. And this is why we as Eurochambers has suggested this, what you said, Peter, a really dedicated effort by all of them to create dedicated trade implementation action plans that really accompany our FTAs, for instance, for CETA, and work with our member states, with our regions. And for that, we also need the political leadership of the EU. I think it's also very good practice to have work plans for SMEs like we do for CETA. And I think we should work on that with the SME community for our other FTAs as well, because this way we can also help address what is really a need for targeted, timely, and practical information on how SMEs can use a trade agreement for their product and service, and what they can do and whom they can contact if a problem arises with their export and import, whether it's in Canadian customs or others. And in particular, I think we have heard over the past time a lot that more information and support is needed in the area of procurement. And CETA here, of course, offers enormous benefits to European companies. And rightly so, in our FTAs, we've always made opening up foreign procurement markets an offensive interest and a key priority. But this is no good if SMEs are not aware of it. So I think I really want to commend also what I've been browsing through just before joining here, the new access to procurement tool, which I think is very good and will help our SMEs navigate better our FTAs. One recommendation, it would have been great to have this 4 years ago at the launch of CETA, but nevertheless, it's really great that we're advancing on that front and helping our SMEs gain more from our great trade agreements such as CETA.
Dominic, thanks very much. You raise a lot of very interesting, very relevant issues there. I pass the word now to Luke from SME United.
Thank you, Peter, and good morning or good afternoon, everybody. First of all, also thank you for inviting SME United here today, and also congratulations with the work done so far. Normally, we are in a position that we have to be critical to what the Commission is doing, but I think in this field, I think that we can certainly congratulate the Commission on what has been done the last years. First of all, and I can only endorse what you, Peter, and what Dominic has said before. In fact, you asked two questions. First, on what is our reaction to the existing tools that DG Trade or the Commission in general has made available for SMEs, and especially in the framework of CETA. First of all, I think there that we see an important evolution. I still remember, for example, that the access to markets tool a couple of years ago was not very practical. Our SMEs were struggling with it, and you needed to really be familiar with the tool or to use it nearly daily to have a good output of it. And there, thanks to the improvements that the Commission has done, and this was taking, of course, some time, we see that now the access to markets tool is a fantastic tool that is very useful, very accessible for the smallest enterprises in Europe. So not only the content has improved, but also its user friendliness especially for small and medium-sized enterprises. And this, I know it has costed a lot of time and endeavors, but I think it was worth doing it. And especially also on the new or the recent ROSA website on the rules of origin, this is also an excellent, extremely useful and needed tool. Maybe and certainly not a critic, because its user friendliness could maybe be improved, but we are aware that the issue of it on the rules of origin, it's a very complicated issue and it's not really easy to simplify, especially for small and medium-sized enterprises. But this is one of the issues that certainly should be more promoted. The issues of and you are already doing this, but we see that there is a lot of awareness raising needed, especially in the field, for example, of the import or export duties and the rules of origin, because we see in our discussions with our small and medium-sized enterprises that they are often not aware of what the content of an FTA or of CETA is. And there I would say there is only one way forward, and we are insisting on this already for many years. And also here the Commission is improving in this. The only way forward or to improve this towards the small and medium-sized enterprises, and of course personal advice is still very important. Personal guidance towards small and medium-sized enterprises is key. But what we need is really the involvement of the representative SME organizations. We know that the European Commission cannot directly tackle the 23 small and medium-sized enterprises in Europe, so they should use more and more, and you are doing this also more and more, use the representative SME organizations as intermediaries in order to reach the small and medium-sized enterprises, because these are the ones who are giving advice and direct advice to our SME. So on your question, what can done be more? Certainly more awareness, better information awareness towards the existing business organizations and also towards the EEN, because if I may have one word of critic, the EEN still does not reach the majority of small and medium-sized enterprises in Europe. So there also we should aim to involve more representative business organizations in Europe, and to go also more to the local level. So working with the existing business organization is in any case key. Support should also go to capacity building, because this is often forgotten. Capacity building for the SME organization to further develop their information and their communication on trade policy and also on market opportunities for the European SMEs, because once again, they are the first advisors towards the small and medium-sized enterprises. Also, for example, exchange of best practices can be promoted at European level about support and advice on participation in international fairs, training in international trade. And also, I think we should set up a specific program, for example, on the recruitment and exchange of bicultural talents in SMEs. And then finally, because otherwise I'm running out of time, I think it would be useful to have a specific ad hoc funding program and also some pilot projects for SMEs in the field of internationalization for the adequate training and information of SMEs, and especially to develop their potential for cross-border activities and also on internationalization. And also, for example, to help them to set up their strategy for existing third markets.
Luc, thanks very much indeed. I think now we changed lens a little bit and we can get the views of two really interesting businesses which have made their mark in Canada and hopefully have found the CETA agreement as one of the things which has helped them to do so or is helping them to grow. Starting maybe, Pierre, you maybe want to tell us a little bit about your experience, Canada market and the CETA agreement, please.
Sure. So good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. I don't know. First, I would like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to present the company and to explain, of course, how the CETA affect our activity. So if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen because the product we do are quite visual. And it will be maybe a bit more dynamic. Can you see my screen now?
It started sharing it. There it is. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I will present the company in few words. Technilium, so we are a French company, and our core business is to design and manufacture aluminum outdoor lighting furniture for public space or private project. So the company has been created in 1971. So now we have our 50 years anniversary. We also have 50 employees for a turnover of about 10 million. Last year, we are a member of the French fab, which support the French manufacturers to promote the know-how of the French company and the France abroad, and to boost the made in France. And we are also certified as a living heritage company, which is a label issued by the French government, which distinguishes the French company with excellent artisanal and industrial know-how. We are based in south of France, close to Montpellier, for the person who knows. And our facility is at the image of the company. I mean, we put the architecture as our value. And we are based in a former winery, which had been transformed a few years ago in a pole manufacturing, a light pole manufacturing. And what we do, we manufacture lighting poles, lighting column, lighting borders only in aluminum. This is our core business. Why aluminum? Because of its durability. It's a long-lasting product, fully recycled. It's quite robustness, so resistant to corrosion. It's high technicality, so fineness of detail, so easy to manipulate, to have different shape, and could have different equipment on it. Its lightness, and it is quite important when we are going to talk about importation, because the freight is something quite competitive for us. And obviously, aluminium for the sustainable solution, this is really important for us. Our extrusion contains up to 50% of recycled aluminium, and we tend to get more, and we recycle obviously 100% of our waste. And we define ourselves as trend pioneers in our market in terms of creation, innovation, and design. You have here some examples, some places you may know of some products we have been designing in Nice, in Bordeaux, in Cannes, and something quite important, we trying this year to focus more and more on the smart city. This is really important for us. You have a good example on the bottom right in Cannes or in Tremblay. And yes, we work all around the world. For the many years, we get many projects a bit everywhere. So we opened 2 subsidiaries. The first one in the USA, in New York, and what we're going to talk today, the subsidiaries in Canada. And this company have been created in 2011, so also a 10 years anniversary. And we are hosted by the French Chamber of Commerce in Montreal. This is which help us a lot in developing our activity. So it's really helpful for companies like us, small companies like us, to get into this market. And basically what we do here in Canada, it's we import all the product are manufactured in France, and we import everything here and to all the places in Canada. So you have a few examples in Montreal, Vancouver, over there of some projects we have done. And for the last 5 years, our turnover for the Canadian subsidiary was about 800,000. And to talk about, especially about the CETA agreement, so we start using it in 2018 for us. So obviously it took us some months to get registered, to get everything done, to get the our REX number. But from one day to another, it was something, because we removed all of our custom duties from 5 to 10%, depending on the product. So that's really huge for a company like us. And we have chosen to do to let our customer benefit 100% from it. So basically, we reduced our prices, and this result as an immediate increase of competitiveness. And because we are on a market that it takes some months or even years to develop a project, to install such product, as you can see there. So it is only now we see the result of this agreement for us, because this year we forecast a 30% increasement in our turnover, and the trend is the same for the coming years. So yes, the CETA agreement was really a benefit from us, and just a few words saying that it also allowed us to win recently quite a big market. We will be providing the light pole for all the OLRT, the LRT in Ottawa, so the new rail train station. And to finish, I would say it was really a good thing for us to develop our business here in Canada, but that we have also other challenges, such as the freight or transport, obviously, which it's absolutely necessity when we manufacture in France. But also we have some issues sometimes with all the standards, which are different from Canada to Europe. That's something I don't know if we can change it, but basically a product we develop in France need to get its own standard for here in North America, here in Canada. But to finish, I can only encourage companies like us to who want to develop their activity in Canada to use a CETA agreement, because for us it changed a lot and it will continue, I guess. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much indeed, Pierre. So, Leonora, turning to you, what's your experience have been? How has getting into the Canadian market been for you?
Thank you, Peter, and thank you everyone for having me here today. And also congratulations to the trade team on the award. I hadn't heard that, and it's great to see good work being recognized, because there's such a lot of effort that goes into this. And well done to Pierre-Yves. He has a great business there, and delighted to see people on similar journeys, because sometimes you do feel alone in this. I am the founder of Pharmapod, and we develop cloud-based software for reducing medication errors for the healthcare sector. I don't have slides today, so I'll just take you through what we're about. Our vision is to be the go-to place for data in relation to patient safety incidents, medication errors that happen, and also for clinical services. And throughout the pandemic, we also developed a new innovative product. It's a new software platform to help healthcare professionals manage consultations like COVID consultations, flu vaccinations, diabetes management, all of that. I am a pharmacist by background, and I've 25 years experience both on a European level and at patient-facing level. So I developed the company Pharmapod 8 years ago, because I was seeing through my different roles, both in Europe, but closer to home, I worked for the regulator here in Ireland saw that there were many opportunities to improve patient safety. There were medication incidents happening in one side of the country, and then something similar would happen in another side of the country or even internationally. And there was no platform where the pharmacists or their colleagues could share the information and learn from these incidents from each other. So I was compelled to take a leap from my safe job and founded the company and developed the software. I developed a prototype and we entered an accelerator program. So it was 8 years ago, and we've gone from strength to strength. Ireland is a very small market, as you know, so we had brilliant early adopter business partners here, but then we hopped off to the UK as soon as possible because we wanted to prove that we could launch in another market and that the problem was not just a local issue. And in fact, it's a 42 billion problem internationally. So Canada was always in our sights. It is English speaking, the 7 English speaking countries in pharmacy, the world of pharmacy, that come together in a group called Pharma Intercom. So, it's a very small community of people when you boil it down. And they share best practice. A lot of the time the legislation is very similar because they share how they do things in legislation, etc. So Canada, I knew, was very easy to get to. It was only 6 hours on a flight or whatever to Toronto, English speaking, and and obviously with Quebec, there's a lot of familiarity with Europe there. So I found it very easy to do business in Canada. But also back in 2017, there was a lady in Canada called Melissa Sheldrick, and she had lost her 8-year-old son through medication error. And that was just with one dose, he died overnight. And Melissa was very active on social media. She was lobbying the various regulators across the provinces. So I kept close to this, and it shows how important social media is now, so we can keep an eye on what's going on in the markets around your topic. I reached out to the various regulators across Canada in 2017, and actually the timing couldn't have been better. Ontario, the largest province, got back to me straight away to say, actually, you may know, but we are putting together a request for proposal, and would you like to be involved in that? And we said, absolutely. And we, to make a long story short, we went for that tender, and we won. There was 7 other proponents going forward for that, so it was highly competitive. And we spent till 4:30 in the morning trying to do this RFP, but we won that contract on the strength of our technology, and it was a real big win for us because we were only a small early stage company at that time. So we localized the platform for Canada. And we had a great experience. It's an 8-year contract. The CETA agreement was hugely important in that, I feel, because we were an unknown entity. We were the only non-Canadian proponent going for that tender. I don't think we would have stood a chance really, because obviously in certain countries, like your own country, you do have you want to support your companies that you have nourished and come through and invested in. But I felt that because of the CETA agreement, we were given an equal chance, I would say. But we did partner with the Canadian Pharmacists Association because something told me by instinct we need to have a local voice on the ground, and we were correct in that. So that was really important. But we also, the backdrop, remember, Brexit was happening, and Enterprise Ireland here, which is the largest investor in companies, it's a government investor body. They started to diversify and focus elsewhere to try and reduce the focus on the UK and our dependency on the UK as our largest market. So that really played into that was one of the reasons why there was a huge amount of investment and focus towards Canada at the time. And the CETA agreement just provided this backdrop. There was a lot of activity between the companies or the countries. We had we participated in a thing called the Canadian Pathfinder program for Irish companies, and that was run by the government organisation. And we also reached out to the ambassador, the Canadian ambassador for Ireland, and the Irish ambassador for Canada, and they really got behind us as an example of a company that can bring a new innovation, a really strong technology in our case, to the country. And you know, it's gone from strength to strength. So we now have over 65% of the pharmacies in Canada utilize our solution. We've also entered the long-term care sector there, with the largest long-term care organization in Canada adopting our technology. But yeah, CETA has been hugely important for us, and I really hope that the work will continue. And you know, I think bringing it back to the principles of why the agreement was put in place, we have you know, similar values, similarities between Europe and Canada, and it is nice to have those arrangements in place such that we can trade easily, and there is easier movement and recognition of the skills that need to be transferred across as well. And I think that is really important into the future to safeguard those and to improve upon it, given our different experiences. Yes, and we've also entered the US market in the pandemic, and we've had a hard time during the pandemic, but we've weathered the storm, and we are still here. But Peter mentioned earlier how CETA is all about having open, strategic, autonomous relations and trade arrangements, and really we're a living proof of how that was really important. At the time, our clients had not heard of CETA because it was so new, but we were able to show them even the ambassador speaking about it on a piece to camera, and they learned all about it. And really, I think there is a wider awareness now. So anything that can be done to increase awareness about it in Canada and with the SMEs across Europe is really important, to boost growth and jobs and all of those good things. And I probably got my 5 minutes, so please tell me if I've you know, but I think that has been our experience into Canada. And it, you know, we have a subsidiary there now in British Columbia, and most of our revenues come through our Canadian subsidiaries so far. So it's a very important market for us, and we're delighted with our progress there and with our customers and stakeholders.
Leonora, thank you very much indeed for as someone whose great uncle was a pharmacist in Dublin.
Peter.
It's a really heartwarming story, both yours and also Piric's. You know, for us as the people who shaped the agreements, hearing the reality on the ground, and how being in the right place when the right deal is there, and how these things can help, whether it's on making you more competitive or just the general environment, is really encouraging. Now, Delphine, I don't know if in the meantime there've been anyone putting up their hands, any questions that people want to ask?
Well, actually, on my side, I don't have any question. I just sent a reminder to our attendees to raise their hand virtually, or you know, in the Q&A section. Feel free to.
Maybe from my side, obviously we've just got a few minutes for questions, but again, to Piric, to Leonora, what would your advice be to SMEs, SME associations that are listening in to this event, in terms of taking that first step of moving over into a new foreign market? Leonora.
So, sorry, Piric.
No,
do you want to
go ahead?
Okay. So I would say to research. We you know, obviously all the tools, and it's a brilliant first step today that you're on this call, because if you know, to listen to all the tools that are available, and you know, any research tools like that, or you know, the Irish Canada Business Association as well, to link in with many Irish Canadian organizations that are there to facilitate and to network in, because networking is so important. And especially, you know, especially with COVID now, where it's not so easy to get around, I felt that when we hit Canada, the culture was so aligned with ours that it was very easy just to build relationships, and everyone was so open and, you know, positive and excited about doing business with us from Ireland. You know, I find in Canada people are very progressive, and they were our clients. Certainly in Ontario, the regulator was very brave in choosing an outsider, and they went against the grain there. But it's, you know, sometimes you have to be brave to have the you know, great results. So I would say research. We also contacted our local university, Trinity College here, well-known university here in Ireland, and they have a scaling program each year where they have executive MBA students doing pieces of research. They need projects to work on, and they need real-time projects. So, you know, we availed of resources like that as well. So just to be outward looking, to do all your research, and you know, try and avail of research resources, free resources, where there's lots of free resources as well. I guess Pierrick will have the same maybe challenges as we did. Each province is different, and all the regulations are different across the different provinces, and we have struggled with that a bit, not absorbing the regulations, because, you know, I think it's quick enough for you to get your head around each of them. But it's the inefficiency, I suppose, of having to deal with, instead of one national regulator, there are 10. So it's almost like dealing with 10 different countries, really, because each makes their own decisions and each has a different system, and each will put out a separate request for proposal, or, you know, open up to a competitive market. So each will have a different process. So I think getting to know and try and get to Canada, I don't think you can, I think it's so powerful when you're there in person. I really am a believer in building those relationships and spending time in the country. I spent a year, I brought my family to Canada. I spent a year in Toronto, and I traveled around to the various provinces there. I met everyone face to face. I pressed the flesh, as they say, and that has really stood to us. And again, because the cultures are so aligned, I lived in Germany for 4 years, and because, you know, I actually speak a bit of German, but my family don't, so it would have been more difficult to assimilate the family there, had I had the family at that time. But in Canada, it was very easy. You know, they slotted in straight away. I put my little daughter in a school, you know, straight away. It was just like being at home. And for those reasons, you know, get to Canada, or vice versa, in Canada, get to Europe and have the same experiences, because that really does solidify. And then with the backdrop of all of the trade agreements, and learn as much about those and what you can avail of in government grants. So I guess they would be the key things for me.
Very, very useful. And maybe Pierrick, you want to come in? You'd mentioned the importance of the local chamber, and maybe you want to say a further word about that. And also there was a question there just asking what would be the recommendations for the first steps of having a presence in Canada. Pierrick.
Yes. So first, the first thing I could say is to advise people to first get information about the CETA. I mean, that for me, that's the first step. I mean, sometime in Europe, we think Canada is really far, but at the end, it's not. And with the CETA agreement, with all the tool and the custom, we don't have anymore. So it's quite a neighborhood to you to Europe. And yes, about the chamber, the French chamber help us a lot to develop our business, because a small company like us, it's not quite easy to open a subsidiary, to get some offices, to start the manufacture here. So it's just to try. It's really the best solution, because you have already everything. Obviously, you have the mailbox, you have an address, and you have all the tool, all the contacts you can have. And just, for instance, I'm alone here in Canada for Technilim, and working really closely with the chamber. it's enough. It's enough for us to run a business and to do some importation and to do about $1 million turnover. So at least the only advice I can say is that just get some information about the CETA and just get information about all the organizations which can help you in developing your activity here in Canada.
Well, thanks very much indeed, Pierrick. Unfortunately, the time has caught up with us. So we'll bring this first part of the event to a close. I would have liked to have come back to you, Luc, and Dominique as well, but I suspect we have more chances to exchange and talk in various European settings. So Delphine, back to you, and we'll move on. And thank you very much to all our guests for the contributions they've brought for this first part of the discussion. It shows a strong line of hope, and to Pierrick and to Leonora, I simply say, you've done CETA, but remember I said we have another 39 agreements out there, so, you know, take your pick.
Thank you, Peter. Will do.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you to all our panelists this morning. Yeah, time is running fast, but again, if you have any question after this, feel free to contact us and we will try our best to answer the question. What I'm taking from this session is that there's still a lot of effort to promote CETA and obviously help European and Canadian SMEs to use it, which is great. It takes us to our second part, which is the workshop. So it's really what are the tools that are made available to SMEs for you to use CETA? And actually, I will start. So let me just share my screen. 1 second. Sorry, I'm just trying to do everything. Okay, so now the first presentation for me will be on really how do you want to do business in Canada? I hope you can all see my screen. If it's not the case, somebody can just come up and let me know. So we are the EU Chamber of Commerce in Canada. We are historically the umbrella organization of the member state bilateral chambers of commerce, and just as Pierrick mentioned with the French Chamber of Commerce, so we have the chambers or the trade offices of 25 member states as our members. So it's really important. Their work is really important, and these the chambers are really here to help the member state companies to really develop. But I will get back to it in a few seconds. First, I just wanted to show the map of Canada, because it's always obviously from a European perspective is always different, and we don't really always understand about Canada. So as you can see, it's a very large country. It's a bilingual country, so it can have an incidence on how you label, for example, your product, because it has to be in French and English. Just also to give you a little bit of information, the density in Canada is about 4 people per square kilometer, whereas in Europe it's 34 people per square kilometer. So you can see the huge difference. We have a population of around 38 million people, but you can see that 26 million of them are actually concentrated here in Quebec and Ontario on this corridor, but I will get back to this later. So indeed, it's a wide country, maybe with a fairly small population. The good thing also, as you can see, obviously, it also is at the border with the United States. So actually coming and starting with Canada can also be a good base to actually go to the US market. But again, I will get back to this later. I also wanted to show you the time zone. It's always something that we advise to companies. I mean, when you have, and mostly now that everything, not everything, life is starting to get back, but I mean, now that we are doing a lot of online meetings, don't forget it's a very wide country, so you have different time zone. I know on this panel later on we have some connecting from Alberta, which is very further to Toronto, where I am based. So yeah, when you have a meeting, just a business tip is always ask with somebody in Canada, just ask on which time zone they are. So there's no problem on this. Now, how to find a business partner? I don't have much time, so I will not go too much into detail, but I just wanted to give you kind of an overview of what are your possibilities. First, just as Pierrick mentioned and as I mentioned earlier, the chambers of commerce of the member states, so the French Chamber of Commerce, the German Chamber of Commerce, the Italian, etc., are your point to really, they are here to really support you in finding business partner, in finding your ways around Canada. So they are really helpful. Feel free to be in contact with us. We can obviously connect you with them directly. You have also the Enterprise Europe Network, which will have a presentation later on. Last year, we, and also to touch base on what Leonora and Pierrick said, we had a series of webinars called 1 Week, 1 Province, and the target was really to introduce each province to the European companies. This playlist is actually on our YouTube channel, so feel free to go there and check. So each province was really talking about the trade and investment opportunities for EU companies. So again, feel free to go there. Leonora mentioned it, you have the embassy network, the embassies, whether it's the Canadian embassy in your country or your country embassy in Canada. So feel free to be in touch with them. And obviously, apart from all the organization that was with us this morning, you also have all the clusters that can support you. So there's a wide range of possibilities. So make sure you don't stay alone to kind of access the Canadian market. There's a lot of opportunities, and I'm happy to give you more information after this event. Well, I will not spend too long on this because we've came across some points, but I really want to remind everyone that CETA obviously is about trade, but it's not just about trade. There's a lot more opportunities that you can actually access with CETA. For example, public procurement at all levels, whether it's federal, provincial or municipal level. Also, now that the borders are open, it really facilitates movements of professional and facilitate investment. So there's a lot. I will get back a little bit later how you can actually find information. I will also be quite brief on that because obviously the next presentation will also touch base. But when you are trading with Canada using CETA, you have to comply with the rule of origin. So the rule of origin is actually organized with the HS code and generally allow a certain proportion of foreign content, providing that the finished product has been transformed enough or there's a minimum percentage of regional content. So that is really something you need to look at when you are trading from Europe to Canada. You also have to provide as an exporter an origin certificate. You have to register through the REC system. This is not just for CETA, but it's also for all the FTA. And one rule that is really important is that your product must be shipped directly from the EU to Canada. This is really important. Again, I will get back to it later. We have organized actually a number of events explaining this in detail, so I don't want to take too much of time. Just also some information when you are shipping product from the EU to Canada is quite easy and cost efficient. There's a number of weekly scheduled ocean containers that are really linking Europe to Canada, either through Montreal, which this is like the Northern Europe loop, or through, Vancouver, passing through the Panama Canal. So it's usually 7 days from port to port. So that's something you should consider. Obviously, air cargo can be considered, but with the pandemic, things have been a little bit more difficult and maybe more tense on this. Again, I will not spend too long on that because we still have a lot of a heavy agenda this morning or this afternoon. Distributing in Canada, it's also very important to select your point of entry wisely to avoid really the high cost of transportation. So if your market is in Alberta, it might be better to actually ship your everything to Vancouver, whereas if your market is in Ontario, it might be better in Montreal, in the port of Montreal. So really check where are your customers and then choose wisely. Just as I said earlier, really, we can see that there's a very dense market on what we call the Quebec-Windsor corridor. The Quebec-Windsor corridor goes through from Quebec, Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, and all the way down to Windsor. This is really where you have the high density of the population. So you have the markets, you have the population, and you have the infrastructure. So that might be a good point of start for you, for your business, if you are new in the Canadian markets. Again, this is really related to trade. I mean, custom in Canada, it depends on what you are bringing. So again, this is just few things because we don't have time to go into individual cases, but these are the agency you will deal with when you export to Canada, which is the Canada Border Services Agency, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency if you are exporting food from Europe, and Global Affairs Canada for certain cases, but obviously your custom broker can also help you with that. As I said earlier, Canada, we always say it's a great base for you to develop the US or the North American markets. Canada is really, just as Leonora said also earlier, we are really like-minded in terms of culture, in terms of working culture. So it's kind of easy to start for your business to settle in Canada, and from there to use the agreement, which is CUSMA, to actually reach the US market. So really, you can think of Canada as your primary market, and then go to the US with a larger market also population. Well, usually I present this, but obviously I won't, because the next presentation is all about it. I just wanted to let you know so that again, our role is really to promote CETA and all the chapters. So we organize monthly events and we publish guides also. So really feel free to check our website. We have a page with all the CETA resources, which is we have guides, we have articles, we have videos, we have webinars. Recently, for example, we actually had a webinar on how to export food product from the EU to Canada, or how to access the North American market from Canada. So really feel free to check our page. And again, if you want us to put you in contact with any of your member state chamber or any cluster, we are happy to do that. We, as you can, don't directly give support service to companies, but we are really happy to connect you with the right people who will help you in accessing the market. And in the meantime, you can really find a high level of information on our website. And I will just put my contact here, and here it is for my presentation. Sorry, it was a little bit fast, but I'm trying to stay on time. So now we will go to the next step of our workshop, which is really the presentation of access to market and ROSA, the tool I actually showed you.
I'm the project coordinator for the website within DG Trade. There are many colleagues working on it, and 2 of them have kindly agreed to show 2 tools, which are hosted under the name of Access to Market, which is ROSA for the rules of origin, and our new tool for public procurement, which we launched today. So, to give you an input on access to markets, how it can help you with your business, I want to give you in only 5 minutes a little tour. But don't worry, as Peter already mentioned, we have trainings ongoing, so if you're interested and see that this tool or this website might be of help for your business, then I will show you in a second where to enroll for trainings. It was also said that more information, more individual information, should be given by the Commission. We try to give you on access to markets a general overview, here for sure for Canada, but also for all the other agreements, and for 122 export markets actually. However, if ever you want to know a bit more, or if you see that you don't understand something, please contact us, and also we are looking forward for feedback. And I will now go through the different pages, and show you where you find all of this. So just a little run-up, you have explanation, once up here with the goods part, which has for example guides of imports and exports, if you want to start. The same for services, for example. For investment we have a smaller part, because it's not yet so much developed. And we have markets, so for the site, for the EU market, so for importing into the EU market, and for non-EU markets. And a toolbox, where you find things like events and campaign information, for example, so events will be the trainings. And contacts will be where you can contact us, and with your individual questions. But also if you have a market access barrier, for one of the countries in the world, you can come forward there. I would like to start off with the one tool, which is called My Trade Assistant, which should help you to find certain information if you want to export to Canada, but also, as I said, to another 121 countries. So let's imagine you have your producer of lip makeup productions, which has this HS code, and you are situated in France, and you want to export this to Canada. You go on search, the HS tree comes up, and the first what is shown is the tariff section actually. You see the MFN rates. For the countries which are dealing among the WTO, in Canada you would be asked 5% of tariffs. However, let's now imagine the product is purely produced in Europe, or mainly produced in Europe, and you do fulfill the rules of origin, and you can prove this. Then you would get the EU preferential rates. So this is here because you have the CETA. Before CETA, everyone, the European companies needed to pay 5%. Now you don't have a tariff on this HS line, but only again when you fulfill the rules of origin. And there Lawrence will come in and show you a quick tour on rules of origin actually. The other issue, which is really important especially for Canada, are the taxes. Because as we know, we have the different provinces, and the taxes might be different actually in the different provinces. So access to market gives you an overview about the different taxes. But there are also other taxes and sales taxes a country might ask for, so you see here which different taxes might come up. In other countries, there are other taxes, for example, to support AIDS campaigns or whatever. Then, what is also of importance is the procedures and formalities. So once you know more or less how much the product might cost you to bring it on the market, you can see a general overview of Canada here for all products, and you can see their more general items here like advance ruling, explosives. But then we go also into a general overview of different products like foodstuff, alcoholic beverages, and so on. So it's important to have a look at your HS code and how to export it, and also here on the general overview. Then we have a section which is called General, so for example how to bring up the packaging list. So if you answer how to do this, you can look it up, and there is an example how in Canada a packaging list is accepted, for example. The same for bill of lading, for example. So those are general information for all products you want to ship into Canada. And then we go to specifics, and here this is related to your HS code. So to the preparation. So you might have to fill in the site's permit for animal and animal products, and there is also an example here, and for other countries than Canada, for example, if for Brazil, and you don't understand Portuguese, this is always translated into English. And this information up here are important, because they explain why it is required, how long it might take, the processing time, which organization is responsible in Canada. So there's a lot of information. And the same goes for plant and plant products here. So you have here examples for the BSc certificate, right? So you find lots of information here. You can also find trade barriers. They might not be necessary for your HS code. They are more general, and here we see we have quite a couple of resolved barriers already in the system. There are also existing barriers, and they are on the barriers site. You can see statistics actually so for this HS code to make sure this is corresponding to here, but it might sometimes be it's a bit larger, and then you can see the trade flow from France to Canada, and vice versa, and also the EU to Canada. So I stop here with this explanation from my trade assistant, because there is much more, and I just wanted to jump into another site, which might be of interest to you. It's the explanation of the EU-Canada Comprehensive and Economic Trade Agreement, so of CETA, and here you find also information on the tariffs, rules of origin, product requirements, customs clearance, and so on, but also on services, public procurement, and so on. So actually those websites here on the non-EU markets are there to explain to you the agreement in short and easy language, so you don't have to read the legal texts. I also wanted to show you in the toolbox the events page. So we have the next meeting coming up of the Access to Market and ROSA seminar, so we have 2 hours, instead of here now only 25 minutes, to explain to you this much more in depth, and you can register. The registration is still open. So it's on the 28th of September in the morning Brussels time. And the last item I wanted to show you is the contact form, so don't hesitate to contact us. We are really happy to receive your feedback, your questions, here via Contact Us, and if ever you have a market access complaint, if the market is really blocking you and you think this is not correct, then please fill in this form here and my colleagues in my unit will deal with that. And with that, I will stop presenting here and give over to Lawrence.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. So I will quickly present the ROSA tool. So in fact, indeed, as explained by predecessor, when you want to export a product, it needs to comply and benefit from preference. It needs to comply with the what we so-called rule of origin. It's a little bit complex, therefore we have developed a tool that will guide you really through the rules that are applicable to your product. And it's really what we wanted, that you don't have to know everything about the rule of origin, but you will see only the rules that are applicable to your product. So voila, you have selected a product from Belgium to Canada, you see the preferential tariff, and then you click in this entry, you will see the rule of origin. I will not give you a full presentation, a complete presentation is available. We can forward you the link, but I will just go through rapidly the main functionality. So the criteria that a product has to fulfill are different depending on the product. And for this particular product, they are shown here. So you will have to, in fact, answer a few questions. And the tool will tell you if yes or not your product is originating. So for example, the first criteria when you import material to produce your product is a product, what we call product specific rule. They are different depending on the product and they are explained here. If for you it's very difficult to understand, you have a rule explained where this rule is explained together with an example for you to better understand the rule. If there is some derogation, and this is the case for this particular product, you will see also here the rule, the more relaxed rule that you can fulfill, and you will also comply with the rule. You also have all information where to apply for this quota here. If you click here, you will go to the Canadian website that explains you how to apply for this quota. If you don't fulfill this the so-called product specific rule, you have some flexibility to help to comply with them, and they will be explained here. Different type. Again, if you click, you have a explanation, more detailed explanation if you don't understand what it means. After you have additional requirements, you have this general requirement that all the product has to fulfill. And then if you click there, I can quickly do that, for example. Yes, yes. Voila. Sorry, I missed something here. No, but you will have it's here. Voila. You will have a self-assessment saying that, okay, you have, based on your answer, your product fulfills the rule of origin. And now here you have therefore a section that tell you now that your product is originating, you need to accompany it with some proof of origin. What kind of proof? It depends of the value of your consignment. If it's above 6,000, you have to be registered. You don't know what it is registered because you never exported to Canada. You click there and it explains you what means being registered. And you have even here a link to the information where the list of the custom office where you need to apply to be registered. You go to here for Rex, for example, registration, and you will see the custom office in the EU where to apply to be registered. You have also, when you are registered, you need to do an origin declaration. Again, you don't know how to do that. You click here and you have all the explanation how to fulfill origin declaration. So I wanted to present you briefly also about the transport condition. If you want to export through a third country, you can only do some operation. You cannot. You can only do maintenance in good condition, storage of splitting of consignment in a third country. So I wanted to briefly explain you in 5 minutes the interest of this tool. I hope I have convinced you that it's a very important tool for you to help you to assess if your product comply with the rule of origin or not.
Thank you very much, Nina and Lawrence. And to the attendees, we are putting all the links to what we are presenting in the chat box, so feel free to copy them and use them. So now I will call Jacob for the CETA procurement tool for the next 10 minutes. Jacob, if you would like to come with your camera in your presentation. Jacob, are you here?
I'm here, yes.
Okay,
I
great.
just tried to switch on my video. You should be seeing me now, but
yeah, we can
not
see
sure
you.
you do.
Over to you.
And the next thing is that I try to also show you my screen so that you can
We cannot
follow.
see you, Jacob.
You cannot see me.
Yes. You have to start your video and then share your screen. Use the now we can see you, and then you can share what you would like.
On my end, it says Zoom OS is sharing a window, so you should be seeing my screen.
We can see your screen, but now we see.
Yes, now you see yourself, which is what you should do. But
exactly.
now I switch the tab.
Great.
I'm presenting a new tool which is called Access to Procurement. And the first question is how to find it. Well, it's part of Access to Markets. And when you look for Access to Markets, the best thing is to Google it, like I have done here. Then you reach the Access to Market website, which you have just seen. And here you have a number of icons. And the icon most to the right is now Public Procurement. In addition, but just today, and I think in the following days, we have even a nice banner advertising the advent of access to procurement. So you can go either way. Let's go directly to the tool. Now, 10 minutes to present it is of course very short, but actually I think I will take less because it's such a very simple tool that it is actually more or less self-explaining. As you see here, in the uppermost part, it's a linear thing. There is a travel you must do from the left to the right. You start with the first question, you end with the answer. But structurally, the question is very simple. The idea is that you have learned about a procurement, and as an EU company, you want to find out whether that procurement is covered by any market access commitments that the country in question has made, so that you are allowed to participate in this procurement contest on an equal footing with domestic suppliers. Now, in the long run, we want to make this new tool available for all countries, at least all countries with whom we have trade agreements. But we have just invented it and we've just started it today. And for the time being, it is available only for one country, which is Canada. And this is also why it is appropriate to present it here. So soon you would see here a longer list of countries which you could select. For the time being, you can only select Canada. You hit the enter screen and you go to the next question. So the answers you have given to all the questions are summarized above, and then you see the next question to be answered. In this case, you have indicated Canada, and now you have to indicate the procuring entity. You can type in the name of the entity, or you can narrow down your search by focusing on a specific jurisdiction. That's Canada Federal or all Canadian provinces and territories, or you can focus on specific sectors like academic, agency, municipalities, public transport, and so on, or you can do both. Now, if I'm not selecting anything and just hit search, you see that I'm getting 8,133 results. So that's the number of entities that we have in this tool. We have put information on more than 8,000 Canadian entities here. Now, I can, of course, summarize, narrow it down, but why not go for the very first entity in this 8,000 item long list? I'm selecting the Health Advisory Council Prairie Mountain in Alberta, which is an agency. I'm selecting this. And now the next question is, what is being procured and what is the estimated value? So let us suppose they are procuring goods. It's unspecified, I just say goods. The reason why it is not necessary to specify the goods is that generally the rules are the same for all goods, so there is no real need for specification. Exceptionally, it may be different, but usually it isn't. If I select services, then it's different because the agreement does not cover all procurement services, but if it's goods, there will be no follow-up question. Now I have to enter an estimated value. Attention here. Unfortunately, Canadian procurement entities are not in the habit of indicating an estimated value because there's no real obligation to do so, neither in CETA nor in the GPA. And therefore they just don't do it. For this reason, the company will often have to indicate its own estimation. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm estimating that the goods that the entities wishing to procure would have the value of 9,999,999 Canadian dollars. However, in the CETA agreement, as well as in the GPA, it's sort of international practice, the relevant value thresholds typically are in special drawing rights. However, I think users usually are more familiar with Canadian dollars than with special drawing rights. So we have an inbuilt calculator who transforms Canadian dollars or whatever other currency will be used in other countries into special drawing rights. I hit next, and here I already get an answer. The answer is a positive assessment. It says, on the basis of the information you have provided, it appears that EU companies are eligible to bid for this tender on an equal footing with domestic suppliers. So that's the positive case. You know now that as an EU company, you can compete on equal terms with Canadian companies. Now let us briefly look at what a negative answer would look like. For this, I just indicate lower value. That lower value is below the applicable value threshold, so it is not covered, and so I get a negative answer. It says, based on the information provided, it appears that there's no obligation for the procuring entity to consider bids from EU companies. And then it gives you also a reason, because for entities covered by Annex 92, like this one in Alberta, the minimum threshold value is 200,000 special drawing rights. And just as a little consolation, we've also added a sentence saying that nevertheless, we don't want to discourage you from bidding. It's not excluded that the procuring entity might consider bids submitted by EU companies. So the purpose is not to discourage anyone, but the purpose is to inform. In that interest of information, we also provide links to all relevant legal texts. This is usually tailor-made depending on what you have given as information about the procurement. you will get the relevant legal text, in this case, CETA Chapter 19, and then you get CETA Annex 19.2 of Canada, which summarizes the sub-central government entities, like the one in Alberta we have just used for our example. Then, since we have indicated goods, you get the annex and goods coverage, and then, of course, you get the general notes on of Canadians' market access commitments. And in addition, you have also here 2 publications that inform users more generally about their rights under the CETA procurement chapter. Now, I don't know how much time is still left. I've provided you with this most simple example. The truth of the fact, however, is that coverage commitments are complex, and therefore, usually, you get some follow-up questions which you also must answer. I give you one more example, then I stop my presentation. So let's suppose we're still in Canada, and let's suppose the procurement is by a major energy provider, I say electric utilities. So here you have all of Canada's major energy providers. And let us, for example, go, because it's an important one, let us go for Hydro-Québec. So that's the entity I'm selecting. And I'm again selecting goods, and let's give a high value like this one. And here you see there are follow-up questions. These follow-up questions reflect the various exemptions and special rules that are contained in Canada's market access commitments. We have tried to reflect them as loyally as we could. So here, the first question is a tender for one of the goods listed below, because there are exceptions for certain goods which apply only to Hydro-Québec. So in this case, I say no. No, in this case, I say yes. It's one of the goods listed below. I say next, and see, I already get a negative answer because they say, unfortunately, this is one of the goods for which Hydro-Québec has no commitments. This list is found, and the necessary explanations are found in Annex 19.4. So, frustrated, I turn back and I say the answer is not yes, but no. I say next, and there is another follow-up question. Does the tender relate to the purchase of water, energy, or fuels for the production of energy? I say no. Okay, you see I'm still surviving, I'm still in the race. I get another follow-up question. Does the tender relate to activities outside Canada? I say again, no. I'm still not being kicked out. Another question is turning up. Does the tender relate to the acquisition of goods and services for the purpose of exploitation of a geographical area for the purpose of exploring for or extracting oil, gas, coal, or other solid fuels? I still say no, and I still survive. I get another follow-up question. Is the tender related to shipbuilding? I say no, and lo and behold, after all these no's, my tender is covered by the CETA agreement. Had I answered yes to any of the last 5 questions, the answer would have been negative. So you see, this is all very simple and very self-explaining. You can always look at the answers you have given, and you can always edit these answers and return to the point where you want to introduce a different answer. So this tool really allows you to play around and find out whether a given procurement is covered or not, and if not, why it is not covered. So we hope that this will help companies to find their way through the labyrinth of international public procurement commitments, first in Canada, but soon to be followed also in other countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jacob, for this presentation. Again, we dropped the link, and indeed we can see there's several guides. There's also a guide on UCAN website. So again, thank you very much for that, because really government procurement is an important aspect of CETA. Now we are going to talk about Enterprise Network, Enterprise Europe Network, sorry, and how they can assist you. So I will call Caitlin and Benno for them to give us their presentation in 10 minutes. I know we have a heavy agenda, so I'm sorry for to everyone, but again, you can contact us later. So Caitlin, over to you.
Awesome, thank you very much. I'll just share my screen here. All right, so my name is Caitlin Peterson. I'm the Executive Director of the German-Canadian Centre for Innovation and Research in Edmonton, Canada. And we're also the organization that coordinates the Canadian consortium within the Enterprise Europe Network. And I'll let my colleague Benno introduce himself quickly before I start the presentation.
Yes, hello everybody. Good morning to Canada. Good afternoon to Europe. You can't see me because, now I can share it and you can see me. So my name is Benno Weisner. I'm Senior Consultant at CETA Center for Innovation and Technology in North Rhine-Westphalia, and I will explain a little bit more later on. So Caitlin, please start.
Alrighty. So together we're going to be presenting the Enterprise Europe Network, which is the world's largest support network for SMEs with international ambitions. And some of you may be more familiar with the Enterprise Europe Network than others, but we'll also focus on how multiple network members can work together to benefit individual SMEs and groups of SMEs. So very generally, the goal of the Enterprise Europe Network is to boost growth and jobs for SMEs in Europe and around the world. So it's a key instrument in the EU's overall strategy. It was originally launched in February 2008 by the Commission's DG GROW entity. It's co-financed under the EU's COSME and Horizon 2020 funding programs. And as you may know, the Horizon 2020 framework program has now flipped over into Horizon Europe. But the goals remain largely the same, and that is to encourage competitiveness and innovation amongst European SMEs. And as you can see, there's a significant total funding for these initiatives of over 180 million euro. So all told, the Enterprise Europe Network comprises 3,000 local experts spread around the world in 600 different locations, and over 60 different countries worldwide. So obviously the major concentration is in Europe, but there is representation around the world. And we do offer a broad range of services for SMEs, starting with international partnerships, which is where one of the areas that Benno and I will focus on. The Enterprise Europe Network has a very extensive partnership database, many thousands of entries from SMEs around the world. Some of these are commercial entries, some of them are R&D, some looking for technology development and technology transfer. So if your company is interested in finding international partners, I would highly recommend checking out the partnership database. You can put a profile in through your local Enterprise Europe Network representative, and they will help you find appropriate partners via that database. In addition, we offer a number of currently virtual brokerage events, hopefully one day in person again, as well as company missions. The Enterprise Europe Network provides a wide range of advisory support on everything from EU laws and standards through market intelligence, IPR expertise. Obviously, free trade agreements is a major focus as well. And you can see that that UCAN is a member of our consortium, and they really are the go-to experts for CETA information in Canada. And we also offer innovation support, so access to finance and funding and advising around what are the best funding opportunities for a particular initiative, innovation management services, as well as technology transfer services and advice. And as our consortium within Canada is comprised of 3 organizations, we're all relatively small, but we exist in quite an extensive network. So if you have a question that we can't answer, we can certainly find someone who can. And specifically to our EEN Canada consortium, we joined in June of 2020, so it's been just over a year for us. As I mentioned, GCCIR coordinates the consortium. We're working together with the EU Chamber of Commerce in Canada West, located in Vancouver, as well as the European Union Chamber of Commerce in Canada in Toronto. And then we also work closely together with the Ocean Technology Council of Nova Scotia as a local cooperation partner located in Halifax. Which brings me to our esteemed partner, Zenit, with whom we have worked GCCIR has worked with Zenit for many, many years in a different context. But when we joined the Enterprise Europe Network, Zenit became our network mentor. And so we've continued to work very closely and to benefit from their extensive expertise within the Enterprise Europe Network. So with that, I will turn it over to Benno.
Yes, thank you, Caitlin. So just to understand a little bit the network, we are an SME organization, innovation agency, and also responsible for European affairs for the German state of North Rhine-Westphalia. And we are kind of public-private partnership. And if you see, we are already running the Enterprise Europe Network for more than 20 years. We do it in our region together with our partner from NRW Bank. So we do all services in the Enterprise Europe Network, besides the financing of export activities, what our partner NRW Bank is responsible for. So I was very happy to become mentor for the new EEN Canada, because we had also already in the past a lot of activities from our region with Canada. But you have to understand that every node in the Enterprise Europe Network consists in another consortia. So you have different partners in each region. I will send you a link where you can find also your regional partner in your region, in your country, who is responsible to support you in these activities. So maybe next slide. So to understand a little bit the activities in practice, we have, for example, with in-demand-driven questions from our SMEs, for example, related to Canada and EU. We organize a lot of matchmakings, events, platforms. Caitlin already mentioned the database. So, for example, we have had an event with Canada in May. We are organizing direct contacts. We are also advising on funding opportunities, for example, for innovation and research programs. And we did also regional events, for example, to CETA this year. So next, maybe. So one example where we explain maybe a little bit our work. So this is a partnership example between Adiutabad, it's a spin-off from Fraunhofer, and Rotake, it's a Canadian company. We brought them together and we helped them to develop a common innovation project that was funded by the ERA SME funding program. Maybe next slide. And we helped them to get the funding and applying in this funding scheme. So Caitlin did it. And we help them to find each other. And meanwhile, they are working together on the Canadian market and had first clients in Canada where the new technology is implemented, for example, in breweries and other companies. So maybe next slide. So maybe we have not so much time, maybe the last slide. Maybe next event, matchmaking in the frame of EN, is on microsystems technology, end of October. So I'm invited to take part in this activity. So what we always do is to help you and to guide clients with CETA, with the help of access to market tools. We did a lot of promotions, and we have in our team, in every EN node, responsible persons to help SMEs on the way to go international. So yeah, that's it. Very short time, and I will share the link where you can find your regional Enterprise Europe network contact point who can help you.
Thank you very much, Caitlin and Benoit. I know this is fast, but again, everybody will have our contacts. And, and last but not least, I will call Philippe, who is already here, working for the National Trade Promotion Authorities and how they can help SMEs to internationalize. Philippe, over to you.
Yeah, hello, Delphine, and hello, everybody. I will now try to share my screen. Does it work? Can you see my screen?
We can see it, yeah.
Okay. I'm working for Business France, but I'm speaking today on behalf of the European Trade Promotion Organization Association. So in a nutshell, this association has been created 3 years ago with 3 missions. The first mission is to be the voice.
Sorry, Philippe, maybe could you make the screen a little bit bigger so everybody could see?
No
maybe
problem.
Yes, and then
is it better?
yeah, that's fine.
Sorry about that. Our first mission is to be the voice of the European TPOs, especially to kind of channel the discussion between the European Commission and especially DG Grow, DG Trade, and DG Agri, and the Trade Promotion Organization. Our second mission is to help each other improve our services through benchmarking our best practices and so forth. And our third mission is to also now develop joint offers of services for our customers, the SMEs, and we'll give a very good example regarding Canada in a while. A word about our members. So we have 27 members, out of which the National TPO Trade Promotion Organization of 15 member states, with a combined mission, which is to help our customers, our SMEs, develop their export through a variety of services, from export awareness, export readiness, preparing an export strategy, and then developing export services like trade missions, B2Bs, and so on. Our strengths comes that we go from the upstream part, which is knowing the SMEs which have a capacity to export, down to the, let's say, downstream part, which is the markets. We have more than 450 trade promotion offices throughout the world outside EU, and we serve about 100,000 SMEs every year altogether. So how can trade promotion organizations help SMEs benefit from free trade agreements, in addition to all what has been presented today, like the Chamber of Commerce, which are natural partners for us? The first thing to have in mind for you is that, of course, countries where EU has assigned the free trade agreements are, in general, top priorities for most of our members, since this is where they would probably have the best playing field to develop their services and to help their SMEs get business and sign more contracts. So it generally starts from the very early stages, preparation of the free trade agreement. When we are aware of this, we start informing our companies. I will take a few examples taken from Business France, which I know best, but what I will explain applies to most TPOs in Europe. Then when the trade agreement the implementation of the trade agreement starts, we develop actual trade development services, trade missions, and so on. And eventually, so we will guide the companies when they have a contact to help them sign contracts and develop their services. So I will go quickly over this. But this gives you, for instance, some examples of webinars that we have organized in 2016 or 2017 when the CETA was launched. Some success stories. So this is maybe less technology-wise, less interesting than Technilom, which presented a while ago. But since it is cheese, I guess it is also World Heritage. We conduct trade missions, as I said. So we promote success stories of companies which have succeeded on these CETA markets. A large part of our activity is to help companies on regulatory issues for their products. So this is really tailored services that we provide to companies to help them see if their products are ready to go on these markets. I will finish with a presentation of a new type of cooperation that we have within EDPOA, and which actually concerns Canada, which is to answer jointly between several members of EDPOA calls by the EU or by the European Commission services regarding these free trade agreements. So about a year ago now, there was a call by EU COSME the objective of the call was to help European SMEs access public procurements outside the EU with countries where there was a FTA signed. So we decided, Business France and two other partners, Wallonia, so the AWEX, the Wallonian TPO, and the Basque Trade Development, so two regional organizations. We joined forces to answer this call. And we actually had to select 4 countries. So we chose to work together on public procurement in Colombia, Ukraine, Switzerland, and Canada. So the reason why we chose Canada, which is obviously very different for us than Ukraine or Colombia, are listed here. It was a very attractive and interesting market for our SMEs. We were present there. We had already a lot of opportunities, but we thought that working together, we would be able to develop a very interesting service, both for our SMEs and for the market. Basically, what we do through this project is to help the SMEs have information on the opportunities of public procurement where they could bid, identify the companies which could position themselves, sometimes in partnership with other European companies and Canadian companies, and also, of course, provide them information on how to approach the Canadian market in terms of regulations and so forth. So I have tried to be as quick as possible. I hope I manage to answer this.
Thank you so much, Philippe. It was great, just on time. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. My job as moderator will end here. I'm Delphine Adenausu, the Executive Director of the EU Chamber of Commerce in Canada. And before we stop this event, I will call Peter for the closing remarks.
Just starting my video.
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I mean, firstly, a big thanks to all our presentations today. I think it's been a very interesting, very dense and packed event. Also, big thanks to you, Delphine, as well, for the skillful way in which you've moderated things. It is, of course, difficult to draw firm conclusions, but maybe I just pull out 5 takeaways from the event today. The first one is the starting point. I think for anyone thinking about going into another overseas market, the message is clearly to inform yourself, to get equipped for getting to know the new market. How do you get equipped? That's the second issue. Well, you've seen a whole series of tools, sources of information, support that is offered from Chambers of Commerce, the European Enterprise Network, Eurocommerce, SME United earlier. We've seen lots of examples of a big pool of information that can help you prepare to take that step. For us, as the source of some of that information, I think we take away that we need to continue to develop it. We've launched today the access to procurements tool, which hopefully has made a good impression and will be followed by other agreements than the CETA agreement. But we constantly need to work to make sure these things are understandable, that they are user-friendly, and that's something we've made a big investment in over the last 3 to 4 years. A third point, I think, is that as regulators, as business networks, we can't sit on our laurels. There has to be a continuous dialogue. We have to get your feedback to see what we can be doing better. But we also have to be looking at how the possibilities under the agreements are actually working on the ground. And there, if necessary, we're always ready to step in to try to tackle residual barriers that may exist. Fourthly, I think one of the messages I take away from this, and from the practical experience that we heard from Pirik and from Leonora, is that Canada is not that far away geographically, but also because of CETA, because of the excitement and the interest that generates in terms of providing a platform or a closer engagement, and one that we've seen how many different actors have really really jumped on that to use the opportunities that a new agreement can offer. It can make real differences, like making reducing customs duties, making the business more competitive on the Canadian market, or it can also act as a springboard, being in the right place at the right moment, which was a little bit the PharmaPod experience, if I understood it correctly. And the final takeaway is you're not alone. There is lots of practical help, practical information that is out there to help the businesses, to help your members, for the business associations participating today, to find their way through. And the Canada model is something that we have copied and we build on for our agreements with Japan, for our agreements with Vietnam, for other future agreements to come as well. So we're there to accompany you on the journey. And then the last thing, we also want to hear about your successes. We want to hear what works and when it works, because we want to have stories to tell, because telling stories about a trade agreement and the jobs and the growth and the opportunities it delivers is the most credible way of encouraging other businesses to take the leap and use the possibilities under our trade agreements. I think those are the things that I take away from what has been a really full and interesting afternoon. You will have the materials, you'll have our contact details. If you want to come back to us or to any of the other contributors, you'll be able to do that. And this is part of a continuing journey through other anniversaries of the Canada Agreement and other agreements. So thank you everyone for your active participation. It's been an interesting session, and as I say, it's part of an ongoing journey. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Peter, and thank you everyone for attending today. Thank you to all our panelists. I will not add any other words. Peter said everything. And yeah, you can stay in touch with us via our platform and website, and have a great evening or have a great afternoon, everyone. Bye.